So today we'll discuss this chapter 5 of second canto, the cause of all causes. So this is in response to Shukdev Goswami's response to the questions which Parikshit Maharaj asked to Shukdev Goswami. And Shukdev Goswami is quoting the conversation between Narada and Lord Brahma. Okay, so this is what was discussed in the 4th chapter. So Parikshit Maharaj asks few questions, and before speaking, Shukdev Goswami prays to the Lord. Different prayers are there, some 10-12 verses. And after that, in the last verse of 4th chapter, he said that, my dear king, Brahma, the first form, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject, as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth. Okay, so both would be there. Here, Narad Muni is questioning Lord Brahma, so he will respond, and as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son. So, whatever the Lord spoke to Lord Brahma, that will also be there in this canto, in the 9th chapter. Right? So, that's the Chatushloki will come at that point. And before that, the conversation between Narada and Brahma, that will come from chapter 5 to chapter 7. Okay. 5, 6, 7, these 3 chapters will deal with the discussion between Lord Brahma and Narada. 8th chapter would be Parikshit Maharaj's further questions. And 9th chapter would be the Lord revealing the Chatushloki, Bhagavatam to Lord Brahma. So both these things will be there, captured within this canto itself. And from 3rd canto onwards will be the discussion of the Lord's pastimes in different manvantras. Okay, so from 3rd canto to 9th canto, the first 6 manvantras will be discussed. 9th canto is actually 7th manvantra also. Something like that. I think from 3rd to 9th, all the routine months are discussed, and 10th canto specifically deals with the current manvantara. So the broad category is like this: from 3rd canto to 9th canto, the different incarnations of the Lord in different manvantras is what is being discussed. Okay, and it starts with the son of Manu. Okay. So, Uttanapad, Priyavrata, and then you have Akuti, Prasuti, and Devahuti. So, Akuti, Prasuti, they'll come in the 4th canto. Devahuti comes, so the narration comes in the 3rd canto. Then Priyavrata's narration comes in the 5th canto. Uttanapad's narration will come in the 4th canto. Okay, so sons of Swayambhuva Manu, and then subsequently the Lord's incarnations in different other Manus also will come. So, this is how the whole Bhagavatam is set up. Okay, and in the 10th canto, we will have the Lord's Swayambhuva will come and his pastimes. So that way it's structured. In the 2nd canto, it is like this. So it's the message or the essence of Bhagavatam is spoken to Lord Brahma by Krishna in the 9th chapter. And now it's Brahma and Narada's conversation. Okay, so this chapter, this is the breakup of this chapter. First 8 verses, we will see the questions by Narad Muni, okay, which has 3 different sections. First and second second verses text would be Narad Muni's direct questions to Lord Brahma. Okay, and then Narad Muni will explain why Lord Brahma is the most qualified person to answer these questions. Because the questions which Narad Muni will ask, it's confidential. Okay, it's the essence of all Vedic knowledge. It's Athatu Brahma Jigyasa. So it should lead one to these questions, to the cause of all causes. Who is the cause of all causes? We see this material world manifest in front of us. Okay, and an intelligent person should inquire that what is the cause of this. Srila Prabhupada will explain about this in the verses, in the text. Okay, the purport it will come. That it's intelligence. When one attains a human form of life, it is required or it's necessary that he has this inquiry of who is the cause behind all causes. So the questions which Narad Muni asks are very pertinent questions, and then he says that Lord Brahma is the perfect authority to answer these questions. And Narad Muni also asks that because you are the creator, are you the one who is the actual source of creation? I'm asking about the cause of all causes here. Are you that cause? Are you that cause? So those questions will be there, and subsequently he has his doubts also. But even though if you know everything, so it seems, because you being the creator, it seems that you are the one who's doing everything. But we also see that you're meditating on something. You also perform, intense austerities. So then, it creates a doubt whether you really are the creator or there is someone superior to you. So please help me understand all this, because you are the supreme authority, you are the authority who can explain all these things to me. You please tell me about these details. So this concludes Narad Muni's questions in the first 8 texts of this chapter. So Lord Brahma answers. Okay, so from 9 to 13, text 9 to text 13, Lord Brahma clarifies Narada's doubts before answering his questions. Okay, so he will explain that he is not the cause of all causes. Okay, it is normal for a conditioned living entity to get bewildered and claim that Lord Brahma is the creator. And it's a popular notion also within this so-called Hinduism, that we say Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the maintainer, and Lord Shiva is the destroyer. Right? So this notion is there in the conditioned soul that, by seeing the amazing activities of Lord Brahma, people think that he is the creator. Okay, and there's no one beyond him. But this is not proper. He says it's natural for a person to get bewildered like this, but then the actual fact is not this. This is not the truth. The truth is that the Lord, Supreme Lord Vishnu, he is the one who is doing everything. And then he starts explaining the process of creation. Okay. So in the second text, Narad Muni will ask 6 questions. We will see those questions. Okay, what are he asking about creation? And Lord Brahma will start answering them from the 14th text onwards. Okay, so 14 to 16, he will speak about 3 of the questions. And then from 17 to 20, he will speak about the distinction between the Lord and the living entities. Okay, so the first text itself, in the first text, the Narad Muni's first question would be, he would inquire about Atma Tattva. Okay, he would inquire about the position of the living entity and the position of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so Lord Brahma, when replying to that question, he will say that living entities, even though it might seem that the living entity is all in all, but there is a distinction between the living entity and the Lord. And how Brahma will explain that is through the process of creation. He will say that creation happens by the material nature, by the 3 modes of material nature. The Lord is not affected by the 3 modes, whereas the living entity is influenced by the 3 modes. Okay, he is conditioned by the 3 modes. Is infected by the 3 modes, but the Lord is beyond the 3 modes. So therefore, this is the actual understanding. Okay, because Narad Muni understands this living entity, and then there is a supreme creator. But the distinction is brought out in the context of this creation. There, the cause of all causes is actually not a living entity, as you thought me to be, because I am also a living entity. That's Brahma's point. Me being a living entity, I am not the cause of all causes. The Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes, and the living entity can get conditioned by the 3 modes, whereas the Supreme Lord cannot be. So that's the distinction between the Lord and the living entity. So there we will see some aspects, the initial aspects of creation. Okay, the initial few points about creation of Mahatattva and other things will come. Karya, Karna, Kartritva, and all these points will come during this time itself. The focus is on the distinction between the living entities and the Lord, but we will also discuss on the creation aspects, because Srila Prabhupada explains those points in the purport. From 21 to 35, it's creation. Okay, the creation is explained it's still in brief. Okay, it's not explained in very detailed manner. That will come in the 3rd canto, as we discussed, 3rd canto, 5th and 6th chapter, and also the 26th chapter. Here, only the principles of creation are explained in 21 and 24, and how different things within this material which are perceivable by us, both the subtle as well as the gross objects, are created by the manifestation of mode of ignorance, what manifests by the mode of goodness, and what manifests through the mode of passion. So this is explained from 25 to 31. Although the ingredients have been created, then they have not been assembled, and it is possible to assemble them only by the potency of the Lord. Okay, so how that happens is again explained in 4 verses from 32 to 35. Assembly of material ingredients by the Lord. Okay, and then there is the explanation of the Virata Rupa as to how the different, till this point, till verse 31, the ingredients are there, but they have not been combined. Now 30 to 35, the material ingredients have been combined to form the different bodies and different aspects of this cosmic creation. Now, how these cosmic creation, how these different activities work according to the will of the Lord, where are they actually situated, and how the Lord is maintaining all those things, is where we come to this section of Virata Rupa. Okay. And once this is completed, this discussion continues in the 6th chapter, which is Purusha Sukta confirmed. The Purusha Sukta is actually prayed to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And Garbhodakshaya Vishnu pervades, when the creation happens, then as Hiranyagarbha, super soul. We will discuss that in this chapter. As Hiranyagarbha, he is the super soul of all the living entities. Okay, the conglomeration or the combination of all living entities. He is Hiranyagarbha, he is the super soul of this entire universe. Okay. So, this Purusha Sukta is addressed to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So, how he is the one who is conducting this whole universe will be discussed in the 6th chapter. Okay. And after that, once here in this chapter we discuss about the initial part of creation, Sarga, then Visarga will also come here itself. Okay. And the continuation of Visarga will be a Purusha Sukta confirmed. In 7th chapter, then we'll come to the incarnations of the Lord. Okay. So just like we discussed the incarnations in the first canto, 3rd chapter, similarly, sequence by sequence. First there is Sarga, then Visarga, then there is this incarnations of the Lord. Okay. And that will complete the whole science of the personality of Godhead. Right? Bhagavan means how he employs his material energies and how he employs his spiritual energies. Those are his activities. Okay. If the Lord has infinite amount of energies, but Acharya has broadly classified that into two. Right? There is the material potency, there is the spiritual potency, and the living entity is the Tatastha, is the in between. Okay. So when we speak about the Lord, then it's the Lord's form, and then his material pastimes or pastimes, which not material pastimes is the pastimes which he plays in the creation of this material world. His pastimes are not material, but the creation itself is employing his material energy. And then when his scheduled incarnations, when the incarnations come, they come by his Atma Maya, by his internal potency. Okay, so that completes the whole science of God. So this is in a very nutshell. Okay. In a very brief manner, all these things are described in the conversation between Lord Brahma and Narada. Okay. So the first two, so we'll get into this verse's text. So in the first text, Shri Narad Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the super soul. Okay, so this is the first question. Okay. And this is what is being answered as we discussed in the 17th to 20th verse, where the distinction between the Lord and the living entities will be explained by Lord Brahma. Srila Prabhupada, very straightforward purport. He explains about the Parampara system, okay, and making Narada as the example. He says, just like Narad Muni first came and paid obeisances to Lord Brahma and then very submissively inquired from Lord Brahma, similarly knowledge is received by submissive inquiries, and service is more effective than knowledge received in exchange for money. Okay. It's a very simple purport. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on the first verse, he says in the 5th chapter, Lord Brahma explains the creation of elements to Narada and the universal forms with the planets as his various limbs. So very briefly, the Sarga and Visarga concepts will be discussed in this. Okay. And from Narada's point of view, as we discussed before, he can see that the material world is manifest, which is directly in his experience. He desires to know who is the cause behind all of it. Okay. Text 2. My dear father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? So there are 6 questions here. There is Yad Rupam. Okay, what are the symptoms of this manifestation? Yad Adhishthanam. What is the background? Who is holding all this whole cosmic manifestation together? Because if you see, in this material world, everything looks very ordered. Everything is ordered, okay, and we can perceive it. Okay, substances react in the same manner; they are not volatile, which basically means that just like we see wood has specific properties. Earth has specific properties. Different materials within this material world has specific properties. Each and everything does only those things which are assigned to it. The sun has a definite course. The moon has a definite course. Days, nights, seasons, the elements, everything has a definition. No? It's very particular. Okay, so the order is there. So who is behind that order? Who is holding all these things together? Okay, if no support is there, then there will not be any order. Okay, but then there is support which is keeping everything in order. So who is that behind this order? Yat adhisthana. Yata shrishtam. So under whose control or who is creating it? Okay. Idam Prabhu, who is the master of this creation. Yet samstham, under whom is it conserved when it's annihilated? Okay, because it's understood that the creation happens again and again. There's a creation, then there's annihilation, and then there's again creation. Okay. So when it's annihilated, where is all the energy conserved? Where is all the energy conserved? So that it springs back again. Okay. And Narad Muni will also give an example of the spider. Did you get a chance to read this chapter? Some point. Okay. So this text, subsequent text, Narad Muni will, when speaking about Lord Brahma, he will say just like a spider. It's a very famous example actually, about the Lord also saying the spider creates its web and then it extracts its web within it. Okay. So this question as to yet samstham, where is it conserved? This is also a question which Narad Muni asked to Lord Brahma. Okay. And yet param, under whose control is it? And yet cha, it's not directly translated in Srila Prabhupada's translation, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that it is the ingredients of the creation. Where does this ingredients of the creation come from? How do they act? So there are totally 6 questions. Okay. And Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that the inquiries by Narad Muni on the basis of factual cause and effect appear very reasonable. The atheists, however, put forward many self-made theories without any touch of cause and effect. Okay. And because they do not go through this understanding of cause and effect, therefore they cannot understand the manifested world, they cannot understand what the spirit soul is, and they cannot understand anything basically about the Supreme Lord. So all these 3, Chit, Achit and Ishvara, they have no clue about Chit, Achit and Ishvara. They cannot understand the living entity, they cannot understand this material world because they do not see the cause and effect properly, and obviously they cannot understand the Lord. Okay. So therefore they put forward many theories manufactured by their fertile brains. But because they are all under illusion by the 3 modes of nature, therefore they can never understand the factual truth about creation. But Narad Muni's question is not coming from his own speculation, it is coming from the reason of cause and effect. He scientifically wants to understand. Srila Prabhupada says that this creation, the whole Krishna consciousness is a scientific process. The process itself is scientific, as well as even understanding to some extent, even understanding of this creation about the past tense and other things, it's a scientific way of understanding of the reasoning of cause and effect. So transcendental knowledge, Srila Prabhupada defines as it's regarding the soul, the super soul, and including the knowledge of the phenomenal world and the basis of its creation, which is Chit, Achit and Ishvara. Okay, you have the Chit, the living entity, the conscious living entity. You have Achit, the phenomenal world, okay, which is not conscious, and you have Ishvara, the controller of the both. So the living beings, the manifest world, and the ultimate control over them. This is the observation of an intelligent man. Okay, he can observe that these 3 are the ones who are active. My dear father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, and whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. Because Lord Brahma is the highest authority within this material world, and he is the first created being. Okay. Even though Narada at this point of time is acting as if he does not know, but in the creation, the first living entity who attains or who has a body, okay, who basically gets a materialistic body, is Lord Brahma. So he would know everything. because after him all the creation happens. So he would know everything, how it's created, how it's preserved, and after annihilation what happens. All these things Brahma is actually supposed to know. So therefore I am asking these questions to you. So three principal items, namely the living being, the phenomenal world, and the controller, are all in continuous action, past, present, and future. And the direct manager is supposed to know everything of such actions and reactions. So Lord Brahma is basically supposed to know about these things. Narmani continues, my dear father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all entities with material elements of your personal energy? So now he is inquiring about the cause of Lord Brahma also. I have inquired about, Narmani has inquired about the cause of this whole cosmic creation. Who is your cause? Okay, so he asked this. And then in the next verses he will say, because you are there right from the start, maybe you don't have any cause. You are also called Swayambhu. Lord Brahma is also called as Swayambhu, meaning self-manifest. Okay. One understanding is Swayambhu means he does not have a mother. It directly comes from Lord Vishnu's navel. Right? Prabhupada explains that in many of his lectures. So that's why it's called as Swayambhu. But another meaning of Swayambhu means he is self-manifested. He does not have any cause. And in Vedic literatures, Lord Brahma is called as Swayambhu. So Narmani is asking, is there any source? Or who is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? Under whom are you working? What is your real position? And do you create all the living entities by your personal energy, by your material energy? Or is there a cause behind you also? Or rather, this is what the question is there a cause behind you also? Or are you Swayambhu? Are you self-manifested? Are you the actual creator? Srila Prabhupada explains that no one is independent in the matter of creation. So anything that is created, it should have a cause. Similarly, Lord Brahma, if he is also created, he should also have a cause. So Narmani is basically inquiring here. So he is not coming to any conclusion. He is just inquiring from Lord Brahma so that he can speak what the factual truth is. Okay. As the spider very easily creates a network of its cobweb and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others, so also you yourself, by employment of his self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help. Okay. So he is making a statement. Now he is saying that who is your cause? The previous verse asked about what is the cause of your knowledge, of your activities, or do you yourself create? And when you observe your activities, when Narmani is speaking to Lord Brahma, when you observe your activities, it seems that just like a spider creates its web out of its own body and then he retracts it within its own body, similarly it seems that you also create with your own energy, and then whenever annihilation has to happen, then you annihilate everything, and after that you take rest. That is also a pastime, like yoga nidra, that's also a pastime, and then you create again. Okay. So it looks as if the spider, the way spider works, you also do. So this is a hint. This example is used for explains Achintya Bheda Veda Tattva. Acharyas use this example of spider to say how the Lord, the web is different from the spider, right? But this web comes from the spider, and then the spider can move to any portion of its web. It can perform its activities, and finally, when it's not required, it can extract everything within itself. Similarly, the Supreme Lord. So that way the web is not different from the spider because it comes from the spider, but at the same time it is different also. It is manifested and then it becomes unmanifested. So Narmani compared the position of Brahma to the self-sufficiency of the spider. Text says, whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior or equal, eternal or temporary, is not created from any source other than that of your Lordship, thou so great. So this is continuing from the previous verse, where Narmani is saying that whatever is created, whatever has a nama, rupa, guna, whichever has nama, rupa, anything that is manifested with this material world, it comes from you, which is sad, asad, which is eternal, temporary, which is superior, inferior or equal, everything seems to come from you. Therefore, I think that you are the Supreme Lord of this creation. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur speaking or conveying on behalf of Narad Muni tells that whatever is superior inferior medium in this world created Bhavyam with names such as human, forms such as two-legged forms, and qualities such as white color, whatever is gross and subtle, sat, I do not know from where it can come. I think that everything comes from you alone. Okay, so Narad Muni asks questions and then he gives his current understanding. One thing we should understand here, or we should know, is that Narad Muni is not a normal conditioned soul. Okay, and Srila Prabhupada will also explain that in the subsequent purport, that Narad Muni is asking these questions just like Arjuna asked his questions to Krishna during the battlefield of Kurukshetra in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is an eternal associate of the Lord, so it is not that Arjuna was actually bewildered, but just because the discussion should happen by the will of the Lord, Arjuna took that position. Okay. It's an enactment of a pastime between the Lord and his devotee. Similarly, Narad Muni is asking these questions, not that he is bewildered, but so that Lord Brahma gets an opportunity to speak and clarify so many different things. Okay, and when Lord Brahma starts to speak in the 9th verse, we will see that the first thing that he does is congratulate Narad Muni, or actually thanks Narad Muni for asking these questions, because it gives an opportunity to Lord Brahma to speak about the Lord. Okay, so this is basically, these questions or the inquiries from Narad Muni is basically for that purpose, where these things can be brought out and these things can be spoken. Yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities in perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation. So from this verse onwards, Narad Muni is claiming, or rather he is asking, he has his doubts also. He says that you are performing great austerities in perfect discipline. So therefore we are moved to wonder, it's amazing to me that if everything is coming out of you, then you actually don't have to meditate on anybody, you don't have to perform any austerities. Everything should come very naturally to you. But then we see that you are performing great austerities with proper discipline, controlling your senses, and so many things he is doing properly in terms of doing these austerities. So even though it seems that you are so powerful, but it looks like that there is someone beyond you also. Srila Prabhupada in this purport, it's an important purport, so he removes two misconceptions. One is Narad Muni is inquiring from Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is the spiritual master, like even in the parampara we have Krishna, Brahma and Narada. So Narad Muni as a disciple is inquiring from Lord Brahma. So the misconceptions that normal people get into is they consider the spiritual master as God. The spiritual master is as good as God, as Prabhupada said, but he is not Krishna, he is not God. So even though the spiritual master can perform such amazing activities, the kind of activities that Lord Brahma performs, it's inconceivable. Okay. We will see how Lord Brahma creates, it will come in subsequent, in the 3rd canto primarily. So when Brahma creates, his activities seem so inconceivable that he looks as if he is the Supreme Lord. Okay. But here, Lord Brahma's position is that of a spiritual master who has complete transcendental knowledge. And people should not consider the spiritual master as God himself. Okay, so this is one misconception. And next is Ahangaropasana. Okay. Ahangaropasana is Lord Brahma is meditating on, performing austerities. And this concept of Ahangaropasana is where one meditates on himself, thinking that he will become the Supreme Lord or he is the Supreme Lord. Right? That's Ahangaropasana. He's worshipping himself. So Lord Brahma is not worshipping himself or he is not performing austerities or pleasing himself, the way it is done in Ahangaropasana. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada brings this point that Mayavadis do such way. They think that by meditating, Mayavadis, there are different categories of Mayavadis. There are Mayavadis who think that they themselves, once they understand, once they have the knowledge that matter is illusion, Jagat, Brahma Satyam and Jagat Mithya. So when Jagat is Mithya and everything is Brahman, then you become that Supreme Brahman. That's it, nothing more. And then within that also, there are those impersonalists or Mayavadis who worship themselves. Okay, thinking that once they worship themselves, by worshipping themselves, they'll become purified and then they'll become God. Different levels of Maya, different levels of craziness are there. So Srila Prabhupada defeats that. He's saying Lord Brahma, when he is performing austerities, it is not on the level of Ahangarupasana. He is not doing that. And because the spiritual master can perform amazing activities, that does not mean that he is Krishna himself. Okay. And if you know, even when during Prabhupada, he was performing, during Prabhupada's manifest presence, he did so many amazing things, and his disciples also got bewildered. It happened in 1970 when 4 of his new sannyasis, during this Janmashtami festival in New Vrindavan, they claimed that Prabhupada is Krishna himself. Okay, and then it created such a tension within society. Then these 4 sannyasis were expelled, that they should not preach, they are not allowed within ISKCON. And then finally, when they begged for forgiveness from Prabhupada, then Prabhupada allowed them. Okay, so these things also happened. So by seeing, it's for a person who does not have proper philosophical knowledge, it is possible that he mistakes the the spiritual master as the Supreme Lord. Okay, so that should not happen. So these 2 misconceptions Srila Prabhupada speaks about in this book. Okay. Yeah. So Narada understands that the Supreme Lord need not have to undergo penances for accomplishing something, whereas Lord Brahma had to undergo penances for the purpose of creation. This created doubts in Narada that Lord Brahma is not supreme after all. And this doubt also strengthens the questions of Narada Muni in the same chapter, first and second verse. The inquisitiveness is increased. Okay. Now, first, the second question was, yes, Yadrupam, Yadhishthanam, Yatashishtam, Idam Prabhu. So, initial understanding was Lord Brahma is doing all these things. But then, now, it seems there is someone beyond that. Okay, so the interest has increased. Okay, text 8. My dear Father, you know everything and you are the controller of all. Therefore, may all that I have inquired from you be kindly instructed to me so that I may be able to understand it as your student. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada writes, the inquiries made by Narada Muni are very important for everyone concerned, and as such, Narada requested Brahmaji to deem them suitable, so that all others who may come in the line of disciplic succession of Brahma Sampradaya may also know them properly without any difficulty. So these inquiries made by Narada Muni are very important for everyone. Okay. So normally, and these inquiries are pertaining to this material creation, and they are there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada himself writes they are very important. So we have to make our effort to understand these technical concepts also. So as much purification we have, we will be able to understand. But these things are important, so we cannot skip over them. Okay. So that's the point. So we'll try to see how much we will be able to cover. We will see that. So now Lord Brahma, he starts to respond. So the first section, we have seen Narada Muni's questions in the first 2 verses. Then 3 to 6, we have Narada Muni on Lord Brahma's position. So first he considers Lord Brahma is the original cause of all causes. And then he has his doubts also about Lord Brahma's supremacy. So Lord Brahma then answers each of the questions of Narada Muni. He says, Lord Brahma said, my dear boy Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions and thus inspired me to see into the prowess of the Almighty Personality of Godhead. So Narada Muni has prompted Lord Brahma to speak, and this has this is a cause of jubilation for Lord Brahma, because he will not be able to speak the glories of the Supreme Lord. So pure devotees relish speaking about the Lord. Srila Prabhupada writes, it is usual for the devotees to become very enthusiastic whenever they are questioned concerning the Almighty Personality of Godhead. Okay, because these questions, these narrations purify the atmosphere and the devotees themselves become very enlivened by these discussions. They want to see that the glories of the Lord are known to everyone. So therefore, they go out and preach. So whenever a pure devotee gets an opportunity to preach, then he goes out and preach. He relishes. It's not something which is it's a work for him or it's a troublesome activity for him. A pure devotee wants to preach because he wants to propagate the glories of the Lord. So that's why it is said, Uttamadhikari, he comes to the platform of Madhyamadhikari for preaching purposes. Okay, because Uttamadhikari is ripe with Krishna consciousness. He is fully engaged in pure love of Krishna. And he wants to propagate that. He wants to speak about that. The tendency to speak is there. Okay, and when he comes to the level of Madhyamadhikari, then he gets an opportunity because by speaking, he can benefit everybody. Okay, he can benefit everybody to whomever he speaks. So that's why Uttamadhikari always wants to come to the platform of Madhyamadhikari so that he can speak and preach the glories of the Lord. Whatever you have spoken about me is not false, because unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate truth beyond me, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities. Okay, so by observing my powerful activities, one can become illusioned and start thinking that Brahma or I am the actual creator. Okay. So therefore, in that sense, whatever you have spoken about me is actually not false, because it's difficult to understand his position. Unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate truth beyond me, it is okay. People have these kind of misconceptions, so it is possible. So Srila Prabhupada, he writes about how the materialistic scientists are unaware of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he gives the example of frog. It's a famous example which Srila Prabhupada uses. And he says the material scientists also want to challenge the inconceivable potency of the Lord by measuring him with their frog-like brains and the scientific achievements. But at the end, they simply die unsuccessfully like the frog. It's the scientist's endeavor to find the cause of all causes. They are also intelligent people. Okay, they also want to find the cause of all causes, and they come up with so many speculative theories. Okay, but because they are not surrendering to an authority, they can never get a factual knowledge about this. So when something is told to them, because it is not within their experience, what they do is they try to imagine. They do not accept knowledge as it is, they imagine. Just like when it's, this example explains, the frog in the well. When the frog is spoken to about the ocean, then the frog thinks that he can measure the expanse of the ocean by expanding his own body. Okay. Which basically means that the materialistic scientists thinking that they can understand everything just by their intelligence or just by their mental capacity. Okay, they also try to understand the cause of all causes in that manner, but because the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes, is infinite. Okay, and they do not surrender to an authority. They basically don't understand what the actual truth is. But at the end, they simply die unsuccessfully, like the frog. So just like the frog expands his body, the materialistic scientists also expand their intelligence, but it's limited. The frog cannot expand his body to the size of an ocean. So this is one misconception where materialistic scientists, they are unaware of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because their whole approach is limited. Their mental capacity is limited, their approach itself is limited. And there's another type of people who accept a materially powerful person as God. So they are also illusion. The materialistic scientist is illusion because he thinks he can understand everything through his mental capacity, not understanding his limitation. And there's another set of people who, when they see someone who is materially powerful, they think that person is the Supreme Lord. So here Srila Prabhupada writes that a material assessment may be gradually extended and the attempt may reach to the highest limit of Brahmaji, who is the topmost living being within the universe and has a duration of life unimaginable to the material scientist. As we get information from the most authentic book of knowledge, Brahmaji's one day and night is calculated to be some hundreds of thousands of years on our planet. And then he speaks about Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma himself is the most powerful person materially within this universe. Okay, and he himself is saying that one who is not favored by the Supreme Lord cannot understand these things. Okay, so the topmost authority to whom Narad Muni is going and speaking to, he himself is telling that no, it is not possible. You should not consider me as the Supreme Lord because I am the most materially powerful person. And even for me, it is difficult to understand the inconceivable potential of the Lord because one who is not illusioned by the material energy, only he can understand the Supreme Lord. Okay. And if Lord Brahma, we know we all have been Lord Brahma at once, and we were definitely illusioned by the material energy, we could not understand the Lord. We could not render devotional service to him. So even Lord Brahma, the topmost and living entity in this world, even he cannot understand if he is illusioned by the material energy. So only one who is free, or one who is not illusioned by the powerful activities of the material nature, only he can understand the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada also explains that Narad Muni's doubts are for instructing common people. He is not illusioned like others. So we have already discussed this point. And he also gives the example of Arjuna. So we will discuss this point already. And so this topic of distinguishing the identity of the Supreme Lord and the mystical living beings. So this is the theme which will be repeated in the subsequent verses also. Srila Prabhupada writes here that the Supreme Lord is always the Supreme, and as we have tried to establish many times in these purports, no living being, even up to the standard of Brahma, can claim to be one with the Lord. One should not be misled when people worship a great man as God after his death, as a matter of hero worship. And then he gives the example of Maharaj Yudhishthira and Lord Rama. Okay. Lord Ramchandra was a great king, and Maharaj Yudhishthira was on par with Lord Rama in terms of administration of his kingdom. Okay, but that does not mean that Yudhishthira is the same as Lord Rama. Lord Ramchandra is Lord Ramchandra, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Maharaj Yudhishthira is a living entity who is a servant of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada also writes in the subsequent purports that does not matter the living entity, the relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Lord will always be that of a master and servant. Okay, so this cannot be changed. The living entity can never become the Supreme Lord. So that misconception must not be there. So these concepts are being brought forth because if you see the questions of Narad Muni to Lord Brahma seems kind of simple, which can be answered in one line or two lines. Okay, this is what it is like that. But Srila Prabhupada is very amazingly, is explaining so many things, related to the same topic with so many different examples that it leaves no doubt that the living entity can never be equated with the Supreme Lord. Okay, so that's why these examples, these purports are so amazing in that way, that it clarifies all doubts whatsoever, and it gives so many different examples also, which once a person reads this, he becomes convinced, or he becomes very clear of what transcendental knowledge is. So this and the next 2-3 verses will speak about the same theme, and which will address the first question of Narad Muni about the living entity, the transcendental position of the living entity and the super soul and the Supreme Lord. Okay, so I have made a few notes where materially powerful person is accepted as God. So now there are, just like in some sections or some sects of Christianity, Jesus Christ himself is considered as God. Okay. He is the Son of God, but he is considered as God. Similarly, in this Swaminarayan sect, it's most prominent in Gujarat. Swaminarayan himself said that people have to worship Radha and Krishna, but then his followers have replaced Radha and Krishna deities with Swaminarayan deities. And Swaminarayan sannyasis are very strong actually to claim that Swaminarayan himself is the Supreme Lord. So materialistically people who are conditioned or who are not engaged in transcendental activities, who do not have proper knowledge, they mistake a materialistic powerful person as the Supreme Lord. Okay, and the last point, Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord is therefore a different identity in all circumstances, and no idea of anthropomorphism can be applied to him. The Lord is always the Lord, and a common living being can never be equal to him. So anthropomorphism is the idea that God has feelings or characteristics like those of a human being, and thus he is just like a human being. And consequently, a human being can also become God. Okay, so this projection of this idea that the characteristics of the Lord is very similar to human being. So therefore, by deducing, by logic, by nyaya, we can say because he has characteristics of a human being, therefore he can be a human being also. And if he can be a human being, then a human being can also be the Supreme Lord. Okay, twisting of logic. And this is what the Mayavadis, when they get into this line of thought, this jnana mark, is like this. So when they read, this different characteristics of Brahman, then they say, that's why they say, it's also influenced by Maya, Saguna Brahman, they say. And Saguna Brahman is like this. So if I was conditioned and by jnana I have understood that I am Brahman, so therefore I can also become the Supreme Lord. It goes both ways. You touch the nose like this, you touch the nose the other way around. By each way, they twist the logic in such a way that they come to the conclusion that they can be the Supreme Lord. But the policy of anthropomorphism is not applicable to the Lord. Even though his activities might seem human-like, but he is always situated in his transcendental position. And this is what will lead to the next text, where next and subsequent text also. Specifically, I think it's in 14, yeah. So this is text 11. Lord Brahma continues, I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence, known as Brahma Jyoti. Just as when the sun manifests its fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. So just like sun, when it manifests its potency, then all these other things also manifest their brightness. Similarly, through Brahma Jyoti, the whole creation is being created. So Lord Brahma, the supreme authority in the universe, is secondary creator. So sometimes less intelligent men have the foolish impression that Brahma is the cause of all causes. But Narada wanted to clear the matter by the statements of Brahmaji himself. The judgment of Brahmaji, the supreme authority in the universe, is final in the Vedic process of acquiring knowledge. Because Lord Brahma is the ultimate authority. The uninformed might take note of it and be rightly informed about the intricacies of the creation and the creator. Okay. Then Srila Prabhupada speaks about this Brahma Jyoti. And these points Srila Prabhupada has made at multiple places. Okay, that Brahma Jyoti is the source of creation and it's the personal effulgence of the Lord. He creates the universal variegatedness after the material potencies are created by the glaring effulgence of Lord Sri Krishna. So Brahma says that I am the secondary creator and the Lord is the supreme creator. So I create after the Lord's creation. Okay. So Narada, you thought that I am the source, I am the cause of all causes, but that is not so. I create only after the Lord's creation. Okay. Only after the Lord has created something, then I create. Okay. So then, what has the Lord created and what do you create? So that's the next question. So now that we are talking about Lord has created something, then Brahma is also doing some creation. So what's the distinction between these two? What does the Lord do and what does you do? That's the next question that automatically arises. So Lord Brahma will speak. This is in a very proper manner of what the kind of creation or what creation is done by the Lord and what creation will be done by him. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada clarifies this point that Brahma Jyoti is not independent or self-sufficient. Brahma Jyoti is all-pervading and all creation is made possible by its potent power. Therefore, the potent seed of all creation is the Brahma Jyoti. And the same Brahma Jyoti, unlimited and unfathomed, is established by the Lord. Therefore, the Lord is ultimately the supreme cause of all creation. On this point of how Brahma Jyoti creates this material world, it will be explained in the later verses. Later verses means in the purport of one of the later verses in this chapter itself. And Srila Prabhupada will give the example of sun. Just like sun creates clouds, similarly the effulgence of the Lord also creates this material cloud, and therefore Brahmajyoti is considered as the source of this material creation. And this Brahmajyoti is the personal effulgence of the Lord. So therefore the cause of all causes is the Supreme Lord himself. Okay. And one more way, another way to understand this is that this material world is actually impersonal. This point will also come subsequently. That the Supreme Lord creates impersonally, or impersonal expansions will be explained. That's why you have it better if you have read the 5th chapter, because you will be able to relate to all of these things. Okay. In the subsequent verses, Srila Prabhupada will write about the expansions of energy of Krishna. And he will say that the material world is created impersonally. So anything, this whole matter is impersonal. There is no personality to matter. Okay, so matter is impersonal, and it is imperative in that way that which is impersonal creates something which is impersonal. So impersonal Brahmajyoti creates impersonal matter, and this impersonal Brahmajyoti is an expansion of the energy of Krishna. Okay, so that is the brief way how it's created. So Srila Prabhupada writes, the Lord disseminates all varieties of seeds by his potent Brahmajyoti, Swarochisha, and the seeds are made to develop by the watering process of persons like Brahma. So these seeds are the golden eggs which are propagated or which are disseminated, which are expanded in the Brahmajyoti. And then Brahma cannot create the seeds, but he can manifest the seed into a tree. Just as the gardener helps plants and orchards to grow by the watering process. The example cited here of the sun is very appropriate. In the material world, the sun is the cause of all illumination, fire, electricity, and the rays of the moon, etc. All luminaries in the sky are creations of the sun. The sun is the creation of the Brahmajyoti, and the Brahmajyoti is the effulgence of the Lord. Thus, the ultimate cause of creation is the Lord. So, very simply, how the creation happens. Okay, so Brahmajyoti is like the rays of the sun. It is potent from the perspective of mechanism of creation. This, as I told, this example of sun will be elaborated in the 18th verse, the purport of the 18th verse of this chapter. Well, I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them, the less intelligent class of men, to call me the supreme controller. So it is the potency of the Lord, the illusory potency of the Lord, which bewilders the living entity, and that is why he calls me as the supreme creator, whereas the Lord is the supreme creator. As will be more clearly explained in the next verse, the illusory potency of the Lord bewilders the less intelligent to accept Brahmaji, or for that matter, any other person as the supreme Lord. So Brahmaji is conscious of his actual position, and he knows how less intelligent persons, bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord, whimsically accept anyone and everyone as God. In these texts also, if you see Srila Prabhupada's purport, at several places he will speak or he will attack the impersonalists and the wrong conceptions that a person might have regarding the cause, because the chapter itself is cause of all causes, and conditioned living entity can have multiple theories of what actually is the cause of all causes. So all those materially manifested or all those nonsensical theories will be defeated in the purports of Srila Prabhupada in this chapter. So if you read it carefully from that perspective, you will see that each and every wrong theory that a person might conceive or come up with regarding the cause of all causes, regarding the creation, regarding the position of the Supreme Lord, each of those points will be attacked or will be addressed within the purpose of Srila Prabhupada here. Okay. So again, he is making this point that Brahmaji is conscious of his actual position, but those who are illusioned by the energy of the Lord, the illusory energy of the Lord, they accept anyone and everyone as God. And one who is illusioned himself, he also claims that he is God. So why such persons take pleasure in being addressed as God, or why such persons are addressed as God, the foolish admirers, is explained in the following verse. Okay. So there are two types of illusioned people. One who thinks he is God, he is also illusioned. And one who follows such kind of person, he is also illusioned. And primarily, people, pious Hindus also, they take the demigods as the supreme. Okay. But here is Lord Brahma, who is the supreme demigod. Okay. If you see in the Shastra also, in Mahabharata and so many other places, whenever the demigods have a problem, first person they approach is Lord Brahma. And then Lord Brahma also cannot solve anything. Then he goes to Lord Vishnu. Okay, so Lord Brahma is considered to be the topmost or superior of all the demigods. So here Lord Brahma himself is claiming that he is not the actual creator. Okay, that he is not the Supreme Lord, but Lord Vishnu, Krishna, Vasudeva is the Supreme Lord. So what to speak of the demigods? So these things, those pious Hindus who think the demigods are the Supreme Lord, all the demigods are on the same level, and Lord Vishnu is also one of the demigods. This chapter addresses that point, that no, it is not such way. Lord Brahma himself is saying that he is not independent. He himself is a living entity. He himself is creating only that which is created by Krishna, so that he is the Supreme Lord. Okay. So that way, this chapter has a very apt title, The Cause of All Causes, because it removes all misconceptions and establishes the Lord as the Supreme Cause. Okay, and all over the 14 planetary system, less intelligent people are scattered, and based on their environment, they consider superior being there as supreme. Okay, if you go to a forest, so Amazon forest is somewhere, people worship, or even if you go to a village somewhere, a remote village, people will worship thunder, or people will worship the rain as the supreme lord, because for a farmer, for crops to grow, only if rain comes, then they'll be able to sustain themselves. So because they cannot think beyond a certain point, they are not that intelligent, they will think that Indra is the Supreme Lord. Okay. And it's also substantiated in the Vedas when Indra is glorified, and Vayu is glorified, or when Agni is glorified. There are Brahmanas who consider Agni as the Supreme because by doing those sacrifices, they can elevate themselves to higher planets. So therefore, Agni is what is most important for them, because without Agni, they cannot do sacrifice. So when Agni is there, they offer their sacrifices. They do offerings to the Agni, and then through that they can elevate themselves to higher planets. So therefore for them, Agni is supreme. That's why Vedic literature, Shrutis, when they speak about different levels, it's within this Traivishya, Traigunya Vishaveda, Nistrigunya Bhava. So Vedas also speak about the different levels. It claims the different demigods as supreme. But Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly defines here that it is not so. Your Lord Brahma is not the supreme being, so what to speak of those who are created by him. Puranas in the mode of passion and ignorance project a different superior being as supreme, and such proposals are also rejected in this verse. It is clearly mentioned here that they are bewildered by the illusory potency, the three material modes of the Lord. So this misconception is removed in these verses. The illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position. But those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in the thoughts of it is I and it is mine. Okay. So this is the answer to why people take pleasure in being addressed as God, and why such persons are addressed as God by foolish admirers. Because the illusory energy of the Lord, has bewildered such persons, and that is why they talk all these kinds of nonsense, because they are absorbed in thoughts of it is I and it is mine. So this illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position. It is also mentioned in the first canto, 7th chapter, when Vyasadeva, by his meditation, he realizes the Lord and the external energy of the Lord. Do you remember?
Yes.
So there it's mentioned that the external energy of the Lord is also standing behind the Lord like this. He also sees that external energy with the Lord, but the Acharyas explained that the external energy is ashamed of coming in front of the Lord, because she is doing the task which actually the Lord is not pleased with. Okay. The Lord wants the living entities to serve them, but then she is engaged in that kind of service where she is to bewilder the living entities. But it's actually service to the Lord, but then it's also not a service to the Lord. Okay. So she has a very difficult position for the material energy, Maya Devi. Okay. She's kind of in the middle position. For her to serve the Lord, she has to bewilder the living entities. But actually, that's actually not a service to the Lord, because the living entities are bewildered. So she's ashamed of her position. And it is said that she is at the back of the Lord. Okay. So when the creation happens, then it's mentioned that the material energy is in the back of the Lord. Okay, so that is why those who are influenced by the material energy cannot see the Lord. Okay, because they cannot see the personality of the Lord because they are not in the front. The internal potency is in the front, the external potency is at the back. And when they are bewildered by the external potency, they cannot see the Lord. So only those who are bewildered by the external potency, they talk all kinds of nonsense because the back of the Lord is also darkness. Okay, darkness comes from the back of the Lord. We will see that it comes from that kind of. So because darkness is there at the back, they cannot see the Lord. And they cannot see the personality of the Lord also because they are at the back, influenced by the material energy of the Lord. So that is why they are bewildered and they talk all kinds of nonsense. And they think that it is I and it is mine. So they are the one who are in charge. They are the one who is in control. Who are in control. So the invincible, powerful, deluding energy bewildered the entire world of animation, but still she is not strong enough to be able to stand in front of the Supreme Lord. Right? We discussed this. She is powerful enough to mislead the living beings, and the primary symptom of bewildered persons is that they talk nonsense. Okay. Nonsensical talks are not supported by the principles of Vedic literatures. First grade nonsense talk is, it is I, it is mine. So there are different manifestations of accepting a false God, okay, without any factual realization of God, or falsely declaring themselves to be God, which misleads the other person. So this is all manifestation of the bewildering energy of the Lord. Those who are before the Lord, however, and who surrender unto Him, cannot be influenced by the deluding energy. Okay. So it is up to the living entities where they want to be. They want to come in front of the Lord, or whether they want to go back, okay, to His deluding potency. Identification of the bewildered person is distinctly given, very clearly given in this verse. So the main point is that this also indicates that the Lord is never bewildered by the illusory potency. Okay. The Lord also claims, it is I and everything is mine. Right? He also says that Aham in so many places in Bhagavad Gita, and also in the Chatushloki he will say, start with Aham, Aham Devasmeva Great. So he will speak about himself, it is I and mine. But what he speaks is the absolute truth. Nitya Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. He is not speaking on the platform of ignorance. So what he speaks is the actual truth, the absolute truth. So that way, his I, he is saying I and mine is the truth. So therefore that is proper. But the living entity, when he claims that he is the center, it is I and it is mine, and I am God, and therefore others should follow me, then it is not proper. Text 14. The 5 elementary ingredients of creation, the interaction thereof set up by eternal time, and the intuition or nature of the individual living beings are all differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. And in truth, there is no other value in them. See the verse, Dravya, Karma, Kala and Swabhava. All these different manifestations that you see in this material world, they are all, and the interactions between them, they are all differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. And in truth, there is no other value in them. So they have value only when they are related to the Lord. Otherwise, they have no other value. So this is also the second verse of the Chatushloki, where the Lord says that everything which is seen in relation to me, it has value. And that which is not seen in relation to me, it has no value at all. Okay, because it only bewilders the living entity. It has no value, it's no tangible value. Even if materialistic people consider, or they work so much, or they have materialistic gain, it has no tangible value because ultimately they have to leave everything. They have to go, and based upon their karma, they have to take another body and go through the cycle again and again of repeated birth and death. The only thing factual for a living entity in this material world is repeated birth and death. There is nothing factual. Okay, so he is only going through this miserable situation. So there is no value to it also. Because the living entity's position itself is not to undergo this repeated birth and death. Its position itself is in relation to the Lord. So his value is arrived at only when he becomes a devotee of the Lord. Otherwise, a person has no value. What are activities? Prabhupada says no. In estimation of great men, or in estimation of common man, someone might be great. Or even in estimation of other great men, someone might be great. But actually it has no value. There is no value. They are just like hogs, dogs, camels and asses. Hogs, dogs, camels and asses are glorified by other people who are also like hogs, dogs, camels and asses. Is there a benefit? Is there a value? No, there's no value because it's not in relation to the Lord. So all the glorification, all the materialistic activities, people who are rich, people who are engaged in so many things, so much material advancement, everything that is happening, it has no value because it is in no connection to the Supreme Lord. It's done only for the satisfaction of one's senses. Okay. So again, this point Prabhupada will explain in the purpose of the other verses, where he will say that one should endeavor only for the necessity of life, only for one's needs. There should not be unnecessary endeavor, materialistic endeavor should not be there. Okay. We will see that. So, in this is the purport where Srila Prabhupada says that phenomenal world is impersonally the representation of Vasudeva, because the ingredients of its creation, their interaction, and the enjoyer of the resultant action, the living beings, are all produced by the external and internal energies of Lord Krishna. Okay. The living entity is an offshoot of the internal potency, and he has freedom to either remain in the material world or he can be in the spiritual world. The living entity who is deluded by the external potency lives in the material world, and the living entity who is deluded by not deluded, but who takes shelter of the internal potency, then he is in the spiritual world. Yes. Where is it? Offshoot means it's an expansion, or he is the part of the internal potency. How is it this? It's conscious. The living entity is conscious. Okay. That is why the internal potency is conscious. So Lord, he has Swayam Rupa. Okay. It's the Lord, and then there are his energies. There is internal energy, there is external energy, and then there is Tatastha energy, the marginal energy of the Lord. So this marginal energy, okay, now this internal action, there is spiritual energy and material energy, and the marginal energy is there in between. Okay. But the constitution of the marginal energy is in relation to the internal energy, because he is spiritual. The living entity is spiritual, so therefore there is an offshoot of the internal potency. He is related to the internal potency because both are spiritual. So why do we call him marginal? Because he has a tendency to fall. He can be either in the shelter of external energy, or he can be taking shelter, or he can take shelter of the internal energy. That's why he is marginal. His constitution is spiritual, okay, but his position is marginal, because he can be either here or he can be here. Both ways. Okay. All things, whether products of the external, internal, or marginal potencies of the Lord, are simply displays of the same effulgence of the Lord, just as light, heat, and smoke are displays of fire. None of them is separate from fire. All of them combined together to be called fire. Similarly, all phenomenal manifestations as well as the effulgence of the body of Vasudeva are his impersonal features, whereas he eternally exists in his transcendental form called Satchidananda Vigraha, distinct from all conceptions of the material ingredients mentioned above. Clear? This is very clear. Do you have any questions on this? Because we discussed this point, that the phenomenal manifestation also is impersonal, okay, because it comes from an impersonal source. But the Lord in his transcendental form, Satchidananda Vigraha, he is there in the spiritual abode. Okay, so there are some points which I made. I've written here. The Lord is impersonally represented in creation because the living entity desires independence from the Lord. They don't want to see him here, where they want sense gratification. So they want sense gratification here, and they don't want to see the Lord. So therefore, he is only impersonally represented in this material world. His personality is not visible. Personality is hidden, but for the material world to work, his energies must interact. Impersonally, he interacts. He is manifest only to the devotees. He hides himself from non-devotees. In the spiritual world, nothing is manifest impersonally. Everything is personal because everyone loves Krishna. But in the material world, it's completely opposite. Nobody has the desire to love Krishna. So therefore, he manifests himself impersonally. Even for the material world to work, Krishna's presence is must. He must be there. Then only it becomes active. Okay. Otherwise, see, Krishna's energies will not work without Krishna. Okay. This is very simple. Krishna's energies will not work without Krishna. So even for the material energy to work, he must be there in his expansion. He must be there for it to be activated, for it to work. But he is impersonally conducting those activities. So therefore the personality is not visible. Because he has to do it impersonally, Because everybody desires that way. They don't want to see the Lord. Nobody wants to love Krishna in this material world. But in the spiritual world, everyone's object of affection is Krishna. He is in the center. Similarly, consequently, if you think that those devotees who are there within this physical realm of this material world, those devotees, because they want to see or they want to develop love for Krishna, so Krishna personally manifests for them in the deity form. Okay, and when purification happens, then the Lord, He speaks personally to the devotees, to great devotees also. So as purification happens, the Lord will personally come, the Lord will personally speak. So we can see face to face. Prabhupada also says that. Correct? As you become more and more purified, you can see Krishna face to face. So then He manifests His personality. Because core point is service to Him, affection, love for Krishna. If that happens, even with this material realm, He will manifest Himself personally. And because He is merciful to the conditioned living entities also, He manifests Himself as the Archa Vigraha form. That's why Archa Vigraha form is said to be the most munificent or the most merciful incarnation of the Lord. Okay, Archa Vigraha, and obviously Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's a special this thing. But Archa Vigraha is there because the Lord is merciful to the conditioned living entities. And by doing even simple service to the Archa Vigraha, then they become purified. So, even though for the working of this material world, He is manifesting impersonally, but being merciful to the conditioned soul, He comes as Archa Vigraha incarnation, which is non-different from the Supreme Lord Himself. So, personality can be seen. Archa Vigraha means, you can see the person, you can see the form of the Lord right in front of you. That is the mercy of the Lord. But the impersonalists, what they do, even though they see the form of the Lord, they think it is Maya. So therefore, even the Lord is merciful, even to those Mayavadis, but the Mayavadis don't want to take that mercy. They think the Lord's form is Maya. They think that Archa Vigraha is also Maya. So they have such a great opportunity, but they do not take use of it. So that's why they are the most unfortunate. A karmi, he can have faith on the Lord, or he will not have any understanding of the Lord. So that way he can grasp some mercy. But Mayavadi, they have a very definitive conception that the Archa Vigraha is Maya. So they can never gain the mercy of the Lord that way. So we'll continue. So this is text 15, and we'll just take a quick glance at the breakup. And so we have covered till the 14th verse, answers to Yad Rupam, Yad Adhishthanam, Yad Param. So 14, 15, 16. These are the verses which are going to respond to this 3. Okay, so 14th verse we have already discussed. And there it is said that the symptoms of this manifested world is, these are the symptoms, and they are all differentiated part and parcels of the personality of Godhead. Okay, so this answers that question, Yad Rupam. Then this is text 15. The Vedic literatures are made by and are meant for the Supreme Lord. The demigods are also meant for serving the Lord as parts of His body. The different planets are also meant for the sake of the Lord, and different sacrifices are performed just to please Him. So all aspects of Vedic culture has Lord Narayana as its basis, otherwise they have no value. So Vedas are for knowing the Lord, the demigods are dependent on the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada writes that the author of all the Vedic scriptures are for knowing the Supreme Lord. And he speaks about Veda. And he says that deluding books of knowledge, not having Narayana as their aim, are not at all knowledge, but are the playgrounds for crows which are interested in the rejected refuse of the world. Okay, he directly quotes that verse from 7th chapter, 1st canto. The demigods are recommended secondarily for worship in relation to Narayana, because the demigods are assisting hands in the management of the universal affairs. Those who worship the demigods without relation to the Lord, they are worshipping Abhidhi Purvakam. Right? This is from Bhagavad Gita. So now Lord Brahma is clarifying all doubts basically of Narada, and is saying that the Vedic literatures which speak about so many worshipable personalities are actually meant for the Supreme Lord. Okay, the one who is the actual creator. All Vedic literatures are meant for Him. Someone might think that demigods are the worshipable objects. But no, even demigods are there only for serving the Lord as his parts and parcels. Going to different planets are not the highest destination because the different planets are also meant for the sake of the Lord. And different sacrifices are performed only to please him, not to the different personalities for whom the mantra is chanted. So all the cause of all causes is Lord Narayana. So this verse and the next verse will speak about that. Srila Prabhupada writes that the lokas or different planets are attractive because they have different varieties of life and bliss, partially representing the Satchidananda Vigraha. There are so many nice things which are mentioned about the heavenly planets, about Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and even the lower planetary systems. There are so many amazing things which we cannot perceive or which we do not have in this Bhuloka at this point. Okay, but all those things are attractive because they are partially representing the Satchidananda Vigraha, the life and bliss of the Supreme Lord. But the point is, at this point of time, we might think that going to other higher realms will make us completely satisfied. But after reaching there also, one is inclined to achieve further progress along the path back to Godhead. Because nowhere is there eternal life. Okay. Therefore, even till one person can reach to the point where he can go to the spiritual world, he always will be dissatisfied, even if he goes to the planet of Satyaloka, Lord Brahma. All different kinds of sacrifice are performed just to satisfy Lord Narayana with a view to reaching him. And the best sacrifice recommended in this age of Kali is a Sankirtan Yajna, the mainstay of the devotional service of a Narayana Para devotee. Lord Brahma substantiates his statement in the previous verse through this one. Without Lord Narayana's service, there is no possibility to attain any type of satisfaction. Because even by chanting the Vedic mantras, no satisfaction. It means worshipping the demigods, going to different planets, performing sacrifices, it will keep a person with this material world. Remaining within this material world means remaining dissatisfied. Shri Vishnu Chakra Thakur writes, everything is Narayana Para because everything is situated in Narayana and dependent on Narayana. This answers the questions about the shelter of the universe and dependence of the universe. Okay, so this is the answer to Yad Adhisthana. What is the support? Correct? What is the background? So Lord Narayana is the background. He is the background of all Vedic literatures. He is the background of all demigods. He is the one who should be pleased to sacrifices. He is the background, or he is the one who is the planets are meant for him. Okay. Yeah, the different planets are meant for the sake of the Lord. Text 16. All different types of meditation or mysticism are means for realizing Narayana. All austerities are aimed at achieving Narayana. Culture of transcendental knowledge is for getting a glimpse of Narayana, and ultimately salvation is entering the kingdom of Narayana. So any type of meditation or mysticism are meant for realizing the Lord. Austerities are aimed at achieving the Lord. Okay. Jnanis, jnana, the mark of jnana is to get a glimpse of Lord Narayana, and ultimate salvation is entering the kingdom of Narayana. So, mukti chitvanitharuto swarupena vyavasati. Mukti means going, situating oneself in constant position and going to the abode of the Lord. That's the actual salvation. That one enters the kingdom of Narayana, not going to Brahmajyoti. In meditation, there are two systems of yoga, Ashtanga Yoga and Sankhya Yoga. Okay, and then Ashtanga Yoga is these processes, and Sankhya Yoga is meant to distinguish the truth from ephemerals. And Srila Prabhupada writes but ultimately both systems are meant for realizing the impersonal Brahman. Okay. So both Ashtanga Yoga and Sankhya Yoga, he says. So now one question that might come up is, Ashtanga Yoga is primarily used for realizing the Paramatma feature of the Lord. Correct? People go through the Ashtanga process, the yoga process. Patanjali's yoga process is for realizing the Paramatma feature, but Srila Prabhupada writes here that it's for realizing the impersonal Brahman. And then he answers this question in one of his purports later, in one of the verses, where he says that even though one might be performing these yoga processes, but because his condition, he gets diverted from he does not have a very specific goal. So he diverts from his goal, being bewildered by the mystic potencies, mystic siddhis that he gets, and ultimately thinks that he has to meditate on an impersonal form. So that way he realizes only the impersonal feature of the Lord, even through following the Ashtanga Yoga process. Anyway, the purport will come, we'll discuss in that point. Impersonal Brahman is situated on the person of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, Brahman is the glorification of the personality of Godhead. This is confirmed both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Matsya Purana. Gati refers to the ultimate destination. Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, is the ultimate destination for all kinds of yoga systems as well as all kinds of liberation. So, if jnana, we start with this jnana process, it is supplicated or it is supplied with bhakti, then that can lead to liberation. But only jnana without any bhakti will not lead to liberation. So here it is. Srila Prabhupada writes, this is actually the purport of 3rd canto, 21st chapter and 12th verse. He writes, the Patanjali yoga system is called Ashtanga Yoga. Sometimes impersonalists pollute the Patanjali yoga system because they are monists. Patanjali describes that the soul is transcendently pleased when he meets the super soul and sees him. If the existence of the super soul and the individual soul is admitted, then the impersonal theory of monism is nullified. Therefore, some impersonalists and void philosophers twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga process. So therefore, they end up realizing only the impersonal feature, even though they are following the Ashtanga yoga process. So 17. Inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him, Narayana, under his supervision as the all-pervading super soul, and I also am created by him only. Now, from this text onwards, Lord Brahma will focus, because if you see the flow of this chapter is we are speaking about creation, or the supremacy, the cause of all causes. We are speaking about the Lord now, and we are, he's answering this question, Yadrupam Adhishthanam Yat Param, like this. So, the distinction between the Lord and the living entity is brought out through this framework of creation. So, in this text, if you see, Lord Brahma is speaking that inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him. So now he is distinguishing between himself and the Lord under his supervision. So I am creating what is already created by him. Or rather, I am inspired by him. So the inspiration for creation comes from the Lord. I discover what is already created by him. So actually creation is made by the Lord, and Lord Brahma only discovers it. And even after the creation is made, the supervision of the creation is also made by the potency of the super soul. So under his supervision as the all-pervading super soul. So there are 3 multiple aspects here. And I also am created by him only. So I am actually creation of him. So he creates me, and then I do the other creation. So I am also created by him. Srila Prabhupada writes that super soul inspires the soul, and all creation at all levels is made possible by the Paramatma, by the super soul. So Srila Prabhupada makes very good purport. He says that inspired by Lord Narayana, Lord Brahma creates under his superintendence those things already created by him. The framework is already provided by the Lord. It is just that he has to fill in with material elements. That's it. The actual creation is such that the framework or the Virat Rupa of the Lord, or the Virat form, or where, what should be there, where and where. But what all things should be there, where all it should be placed, how these should be at. Now this prototype or this framework is already given by the Lord. Lord Brahma only fills it with gross and subtle ingredients. So only that aspect is Lord Brahma's creation. The actual creation is actually, the principles of creation is actually done by the Lord. 2 identities of the soul, the super soul and the individual soul, are admitted to be in the living entity, even by the greatest authority of the universe. So this is, again, Prabhupada makes this point that the distinction between two living entities is there. Two living entities exist. There is the soul and then there is the super soul. And right here it is admitted because the soul works only through the inspiration of the super soul. Only by the inspiration of Paramatma, the Jiva can do something. Therefore, there are two living entities and these two are different. The living entity is not Brahman. Or rather, he is Brahman, but it's not Supreme Brahman, the Parabrahman. Parabrahman is different and living entity is subservient to him. The Lord inspires the individual soul to create what is already created by the Lord. And by the goodwill of the Lord, a discoverer of something in the world is accredited as the discoverer. It is said that Columbus discovered the Western Hemisphere. Actually, the tract of land was not created by Columbus. And he says, Columbus, by the dint of his past service unto the Lord, was blessed with the credit of discovering America. So he had done some pious activities before. That is why he has got the credit. No one can create anything without the sanction of the Lord, since everyone sees according to his ability. So people have abilities. Okay, and that ability is given by the Supreme Lord. I am the ability in man. Right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the ability. So whatever ability that comes or that is there within a living entity, within a person, it is also inspired to the super soul only. So if we can see so much great creation is made, so many huge buildings are made, so much technological advancement, so many things are made, all those things is possible only by the inspiration of the Lord. Otherwise, no one can create anything. It is not possible. The living entity, for each and every moment, for each and every activity that it does, is dependent completely on the super soul, on the Paramatma. Only when the Paramatma sanctions, then it is possible. Even to move our hand, to see, even to blink, our eyes, they are dependent on the Supreme Lord. Okay. Nothing works without Him. So, no one can create anything without the Super Soul. This ability is awarded, but this ability is also awarded by the Lord according to one's willingness to render service unto Him. So therefore, one must voluntarily render service unto Him. Then the Lord will empower the doer in proportion to his surrender onto the lotus feet of the Lord. So Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord and therefore he is empowered to do the creation. Similarly, the Lord also inspired Arjuna to fight in Kurukshetra. And then continuing this point, Srila Prabhupada writes that Krishna, although he is the one, who under whose inspiration only the living entity can do something, but he allows the living entity, his pure devotee, to take all the credit. And this is how it is, Lord Brahma takes the credit for creation. And all that you see, the Leela or the pastimes of the Lord, we see that the devotee is glorified as much as the Lord or even more than Lord. Prahlad Maharaj is glorified much more than the Lord. When we speak about Dhruva's narration, Dhruva Maharaj is glorified. Most of it is about Dhruva Maharaj. Krishna Garba comes, Lord Krishna Garba comes, gives benediction, goes away. But then it's Dhruva who's in the center. So in Bhagavatam glorifies Dhruva. Similarly in the case of Pandavas, in the case of Bali Maharaj, in all these different pastimes also, the Lord makes sure that his devotees are glorified. Similarly, Brahma is glorified for creation, Arjuna is glorified for his fighting prowess in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And devotees accomplish wonderful deeds due to the direction of the Lord. And those who are not surrendered souls are put under the care of the material nature. Brahmayan sarva bhutani yantararudhani maya. And what happens? They wander. Brahmayan, they keep Brahman, they do Brahman, they wander throughout the material universe in bodies, which are called as yantras, in this machine-like body which is made up of Maya. Therefore, they are allowed to do things on their own account and suffer the consequences themselves. So those who are independent, they suffer independently. The Lord does not interfere with them. The subtle presence of the Lord is felt by the intelligent man who can study psychic effects of thinking, feeling and willing. An intelligent man who can understand or who can study the effects of thinking, feeling and willing, he will be able to subtly understand the presence of the Lord. And this was discussed in the last verse of the second chapter, where Sri Jiva Goswami, actually Prabhupada writes, but it's actually taken from Jiva Goswami's commentary, on how using logic one can understand or realize the presence of the Lord.
2.2.35.
Right, 2.2.35. Also. This whole logical sequence would be there of how the Lord can be understood just by our intelligence. So this is what Prabhupada is writing, a giving hint to that verse. He's saying the subtle presence of the Lord is felt by the intelligent man who can study the psychic effects of thinking, feeling and willing. So basically referring to that verse. He continues, Lord Brahma continues, the Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet, for the sake of the creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion and ignorance. So he himself is not directly influenced by the material, by the modes. He engages with them through the agency of his external potency. Okay. So that way, his energy is not different from Krishna. So that way he is interacting with the modes, we can say, or he is in touch with the modes, we can say, but he is not in direct contact. He is in contact through his material energy. Okay. So that way, he is separate. He is Bahiranga, which is separated from the Lord. It is a Bahiranga Shakti. Bahiranga means what? That Shakti which is apart, which is Bahar, it's away from him. But he contacts, but the energy is not different from the Lord also. That is the Achintya principle. It's different and non-different also, even the material energy. But he does not get influenced by the modes because he engages with them through his external energy, which is different from, which is separated from Bahiranga Shakti. This is the way of inconceivable understanding. We cannot put a logic and pinpoint actually how it works because it's inconceivable to us. Because we do not find this in experience in this material world. We can give analogies, okay, but then the Lord is able to accomplish such inconceivable potencies is what makes him the Lord. Okay, and that's what makes him the Supreme Lord. It's inconceivable, but this is how it happens. So the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the master of the external energy, and as master of this energy, he is ever unaffected by the influence of such bewildering energy because he is the master. The living entities, however, are affected by these modes, and that is the difference between the Lord and the living entities. Okay, so again, this point is brought up that the distinction is there between the Lord and the living entities because the Lord is never influenced by the material nature, whereas the living entity is influenced. Okay, it's prone to get influenced. The material modes of nature, being products of the energy of the Lord, are certainly connected with the Lord, but the connection is just like that between the master and the servants. Okay. So the connection is there, but the connection is between the master and the servant. And just that the servant are completely under the control of the master, and the master is not influenced by the servant. Similarly, the Lord is not influenced by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord, Supreme Lord, is the control of the material energy, whereas the living entities who are entangled in the material world are neither masters nor controllers. Rather, they become subordinate to or controlled by such energies. Right? So they are not the enjoyers and they are not the controllers also. So they become subordinate or controlled by such energies. And at times, he creates the material energy as the sun creates a cloud in the clear sky. As the sun is ever increasingly unaffected by a spot of cloud, so also the unlimited Lord is unaffected by the spot of material energy. So this is the explanation how Brahmajyoti creates the material world, okay, the material cosmic creation. So here Prabhupada writes, right? So actually the Lord is eternally manifested by his internal potency or spiritual energy, just like the sun and its rays in a clear sky. But at times he creates the material energy as the sun creates a cloud in the clear sky. As the sun is ever increasingly unaffected by a spot of cloud, so also the unlimited Lord is unaffected by the spot of material energy, which is manifested at times in the unlimited span of the Lord's rays of Brahmajyoti. Brahmajyoti is unlimited. Okay. And in the corner of the Brahmajyoti, the material cloud is manifested. So the cloud, because the cloud is there, the living entities cannot see the Lord. Okay. But it does not mean the cloud has covered Brahmajyoti or the cloud has covered the sun. These three modes of material nature, being further manifested as matter, knowledge and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect and make him responsible for such activities. So, the actual principle of creation starts from this 18th text. where he says, Lord Brahma says that the Lord accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion and ignorance. And through this goodness, passion and ignorance, then further creation is made possible. So one point here is, one important point is eternally transcendental living entity. Okay, so the living entity is eternally transcendental. Does not matter if the living entity is within this material realm or in the spiritual realm. Okay. The living entity is always transcendental. It is just that the living entity is covered by material nature. Okay. It's only a covering. Once the covering is removed, then the living entity can exhibit its transcendental nature. So the eternally transcendental living entities under conditions, that's what makes him a conditioned soul. So what is that condition? The condition of cause and effect and making responsible for such activities. Okay. So the modes of material nature are manifested as matter, knowledge and activities. Dravya, Jnana and Kriya. Okay. So Dravya, Kriya and Dravya, Jnana and Kriya. Okay. That is matter, knowledge and activities. So the three modes of nature manifest three things. Dravya is any material object. Matter. Anything which is matter, that is Dravya. Knowledge is that which we'll see. Knowledge is that which covers the constitutional position of the living entity and engages him in interacting with matter. See, living entity interacts with matter, correct, to fulfill his necessities. You see, those who are not devotees or a normal conditioned living entity, what does he do? He identifies himself with his body, correct? And then he thinks that by interacting with material objects, he will achieve ultimate satisfaction. Correct? So this constitutional knowledge, actually this is Satchidananda. The living entity is Sat, Chit and Ananda. He has knowledge, but that knowledge is covered by the Jnana, which is mentioned here, knowledge, which is manifested by the three modes of material nature. So when the modes come into picture, the actual Jnana of the living entity is covered. Okay, so material knowledge is there, but it covers the spiritual knowledge of the living entity. And then activities are manifested. So when the living entity whose knowledge is covered, then he wants to engage with the Dravya, with matter. And then he starts doing his activities, his Kriya. And by that he becomes conditioned by the karmic reactions. And then it goes on again and again. So that is the Karya, Karana and Kartritva. We will see that. So external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entities eternally existing with him. Right? This is what we discussed. So this is covering up, this is the Jnana Shakti, the covering. But the covering is so constant that it appears that the conditioned souls are eternally ignorant. Such is the wonderful action of Maya, or the external energy, manifested as if materially produced. Okay, so the external energy looks as if it is materially produced, but it is actually the energy of the Lord. By the covering power of the material energy, the material scientist cannot look beyond the material causes. Because the material scientist is covered, the living entity is covered by Dravya, Jnana and Kriya, he cannot look beyond that to the Supreme Lord. Okay. Only when the Lord wishes to reveal himself can a living entity understand the Lord or know about the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible. Does not matter if one speculates for millions and millions of years, does not matter how much brain capacity he has. Even if one has the intelligence of that of Lord Brahma, if he engages, or if he is not a devotee of the Lord, or if he is engaging only in speculation, he will not be able to perceive, he will not be able to understand the transcendental nature of the Lord. It is not possible because all living beings within this material realm are covered by these three things: Dravya, Jnana and Kriya. Material knowledge, materialistic activities and by matter. So because of that, they by their own endeavor will never be able to realize the Lord. Only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord coming through the disciplic succession of spiritual master, it is possible to understand the position of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible. Okay. So that's why the disciplic succession is so important. And surrender to the spiritual master is so important. Because the knowledge, when we say the knowledge, it is not only the technical knowledge, or it's not only the Shastri Jnana or kind of knowledge which the impersonalists or the Vedantists engage in. Disciplic succession not only means knowledge, but also means the potency which can reveal the Lord. Okay, the Chit Shakti. The Chit Shakti of the Lord is what is carried in the Parampara. Okay, because the Chit Shakti can reveal the Lord. Maya Shakti cannot reveal the Lord. Maya Shakti will only cover the living entity. So Chit Shakti reveals the Lord. So disciplic succession, if it is there, it carries the potency. That is why only those who are following all the rules and regulations properly, who sincerely engage in devotional service, they gain the potency of their spiritual master and they themselves become potent. They are the carriers of the Chit Shakti of the Lord. And that way they can impart that knowledge, that Shakti to the disciples also, which reveals the Lord. So it's not a mechanical process where the Guru sits and then he speaks about Shastra and that's it. Okay, he should have potency. He should have potency. That's why in Bhagavatam also we will see, or we have seen, that the speaker should have these qualifications. Again and again we will see the speaker should have this qualification. Correct? We saw in this canto also, in first canto also we have seen. So the qualification of speaker is mentioned so prominently in Bhagavatam because he is the one who is supposed to carry the Shakti, the Chit Shakti of the Lord, and it directly imparts the realization onto his disciple. The Chit Shakti that should be there. So those who are not following the rules and regulations properly, those who are not surrendered to the spiritual master properly, they do not carry the Chit Shakti. So their disciples cannot understand it. It's like a broken link. And that is how Sakalineha Mata Yoga Nishima, broken link happens because people, it's up to people. It's not that the knowledge is faulty. People who are not following or disciples who are not following properly, they break the disciplic succession. Because they do not become the carriers, they do not become the recipients of the Chit Shakti. So definitely they cannot give it to the disciples also. So Prabhupada writes that, but actually behind the material manifestation, there are Adibhuta, Adhyatma and Adideva actions. So he introduces these three terms here. We will see what they are, which the conditioned soul in the mode of ignorance cannot see. The Adibhuta manifestation entails repetitions of birth and death with old age and diseases. The Adhyatma manifestation conditions the spirit soul, and the Adideva manifestation is the controlling system. These are the material manifestations of cause and effect and the sense of responsibility of the conditioned actors. They are, after all, manifestation of the conditioned state, and the human being's freedom from such a conditioned state is the highest perfectional attainment. Okay, so I have a small table here. So from the three modes, okay, what? First, the Dravya, Jnana and Kriya, okay, they are manifested. And Dravya is matter, okay, and when the living entities is conditioned by matter, then what happens? He undergoes repeated birth, death, old age and disease. So that is your Adibhuta principle. Okay. And why does it happen? It happens because his jnana, his knowledge has been covered. The actual knowledge of the living entity has been covered by the materialistic knowledge, which is manifested by the three modes. Correct? If you go back to this transition, the three modes of material nature being further manifested as matter, knowledge and activities. So this knowledge that we are speaking about is not the transcendental knowledge, but the knowledge which is manifested by the three modes. Okay. So this jnana, it becomes the cause. The cause for the living entity to undergo repeated birth and death. And what is that cause? Because he misidentifies with the body. Okay. So this is what Prabhupada writes here. That Adhyatma manifestation conditions the spirit soul. What is the conditioning? The conditioning is his misidentification with the body. Correct? And that entails repetition of birth and death with old age and diseases, which is Adibhuta. Okay. So this is the cause. Adhyatma is the cause. Adibhuta is the effect. So this is your Karana and your Karya. So Karana is here. Karya, Karana, Kartrutve. These three things is what we are discussing now, which are brought about by Dravya, Jnana and Kriya. Okay. So when the cause and effect is there, then the Kriya activities happen. When the knowledge is covered, okay, then the living entity, the conditioned living entity engages in materialistic activities. And he entangles himself further and further in the material process. Correct. So this is called as Kartrutve, and here Adideva principle is mentioned because all of the activities of the living entity is controlled by the demigods and he himself is responsible for those activities. The living entity is responsible for these activities because whatever activities he performs, materially conditioned, he will have to bear the reactions for that.
Adideva will not be effect.
Adideva is not the effect. Adibhuta is the effect. Adideva is the living entity gaining the responsibility for his actions and the controlling principle who gives him those reactions. So he becomes entire. Basically what this means, Adideva, is that he is influenced or he is conditioned to those material actions and reactions. Activities for living entities.
What is the effect result of the
that is effect is this is an analysis that we are doing. Okay, you can call it as an effect, but the effect is manifested in the repeated birth and death of the living entity. Okay, Adideva is where he becomes responsible for his activities. This is very pertaining to this activities. Okay, specific to his kriya, specific to his activities, he becomes responsible for those activities and is also controlled by the demigods who bestow those reactions upon him. Okay, but the principle for a material living entity, the cause is his misalignment with the body, which leads to repeated birth and death. And in the sequence of repeated birth and death, he engages himself in many activities, which makes him responsible for those activities, and also they are controlled by the demigods. Okay. The living entity is transcendental, but is conditioned by material nature, but the Lord is not, as mentioned in the next text. Yeah, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a commentary on this, but we will not get into that because it's a bit confusing. But this is what it is. Okay, this is directly based on the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Okay, this tabular column comes from that. And this Adibhuta Adhyatma Adideva principle is mentioned in multiple places within Srimad Bhagavatam itself. So this will also come in the same chapter when we are discussing about this Hiranyagarbha later in the verses. And this is also there in the 10th canto and 11th canto. Okay. So based on that, we come to this understanding. Then text 20. O Brahmana, Narada, the superseer, the transcendent Lord, is beyond the perception of the material senses of the living entities because of the above mentioned three modes of nature. But he is controller of everyone, including me. Okay? This is the point we discussed just now. That the Lord is beyond the perception of the material senses of the living entities because of the above mentioned three modes of nature. Because it's covered, the living entity's knowledge is covered. And Prabhupada makes he brings the point, he drives home the point about impersonalists. That impersonalists are covered by material nature, so they also cannot approach the Lord. Okay, for conditioned living entities, it's understood. But for impersonalists also, okay, for them also it is not possible to approach the Lord. The fact is that such impersonalists are covered by the above mentioned three modes of material nature. This is important. Impersonalists are also covered by the three modes of material nature. Therefore, they are unable to approach the transcendental personality of the Lord. The Lord is not approachable by everyone because he is curtailed by his Yogamaya potency. But one should not wrongly conclude that the Lord was formerly unmanifested and has now manifested himself in the human form. This misconception of the formlessness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is due to the Yogamaya curtain of the Lord and can be removed only by the Supreme Will, as soon as the conditioned soul surrenders unto him. So as soon as we surrender unto the Lord, the curtain will be removed. Okay. And we start learning about the Lord. The devotees of the Lord who are transcendental to the above mentioned three modes of material nature can see the all blissful transcendental form of the Lord with their vision of love in the attitude of pure devotional service. Those devotees of the Lord for a devotee of the Lord, it does not matter whether he is in the material realm or the spiritual realm, in the Brahma Jyoti, or whichever path of creation he goes to, he can always see the Lord. Okay. Devotees of the Lord are always transcendental. They are not bound by the rules of this material realm because they are beyond the three modes of material nature. So, for those pure devotees who have attained the level of pure devotion for the Lord, who have attained the love and affection for the Lord, for them it does not matter wherever they go, in which part of the creation they might be, either in the spiritual creation or in the material creation. They can always see the Lord. They can always contact the Lord. They can speak with Him. They can have pastimes with Him. They might manifest it in different ways, but they are always in connection. They are always in contact with the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes here that, O Lord, cause of all causes, if your transcendental body were not beyond the modes of material nature, one could not understand the difference between matter and transcendence. Only by your presence can one understand the transcendental nature of your Lordship, who are the controller of material nature. Your transcendental nature is very difficult to understand unless one is influenced by your presence, by the presence of your transcendental form. So this is important. If the Lord's transcendental form was not beyond the modes of material nature, one cannot understand the difference between matter and transcendence. Okay. So the perception of matter and transcendence itself comes because the Lord is beyond the three modes of material nature. Okay. So that's why the pure devotee's realization is factual. It is not his imagination. A pure devotee's realization is completely factual because the transcendental body of the Lord is beyond the three modes of material nature. So this is the proof from the Shastra that the Lord is not an impersonal form, but he has a personality. And that is why the pure devotees, the realization that he gets is completely factual. Whereas the realization of the impersonalists, even those who merge into Brahmajyoti, it is not complete. Okay. It's fact to a certain extent. But then it's not the complete absolute truth. So therefore they have to come back to this material truth. Okay, so with this we finish this section where the distinction between the Lord and the living entity is discussed. Okay, so you have any questions? Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki,